Hey guys, Mick here from Fitness First. About to get into one of our workouts today with the lovely Amy, who's joining us again. This workout is going to be using some tempo changes and some holds to just change the intensity of some of the exercises we'll be performing today. So bear with us. We do have some equipment, but it's all optional. So you might have access to a stair, or something that can elevate you, some of these different movements, but they're all as needed. So we can work around some of these things, but just again to try to mix up your workout while you are training at home. So our first movement, just to start to warm up the body, we're going to get Amy doing a reverse step and just creating a little bit of tension in that hip, in that left hip. And then she's reaching overhead, and she can reach in different patterns. So she can reach directly back, she can go across the body, or she can go on the side of the body, the foot that's on the ground, sorry. So it might get her to tilt towards me, just to open up a little bit through that hip flexor. Beautiful, and we might change sides. So feel free to do a few of these if you are feeling a little bit stiff, but we're conscious everyone wants to get into the workout, so we're just gonna do 2 each side. If you need a little bit more, hit pause, and just feel free to get into this movement. One thing just to be aware of is to try to tuck the hips underneath, to try to take out some of the tension from the lower back. So really tuck the hips under. Awesome. So Amy's looking good there. She's nice and supple. Once again, if you need a little bit more, by all means, press pause and away we go. So our first one is a split squat. A lot of you will be familiar with these exercises, but we are, as I said, we're playing around with tempo and holds in today's workout. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a split squat with 1 1/4 reps. And so what you're going to see Amy do is come forward into her first repetition, perform a quarter repetition, come forward again to the end range and go back. Really nice. We're going to return to that position, a little quarter, and she's going to go back. We're going to complete 6 reps of this movement. Now you'll notice we've elevated Amy's front foot on this riser here. That's optional. So guys, if you don't have access to a riser, feel free just to do this on the ground. If you've got some restrictions around the lower limb, so the ankle and that area of your body, the raised position can just help increase that range of motion. So it is preferred if you do have some restrictions down there. If you don't and you want to just go off the ground, by all means. Now Amy's got some great range of motion in the lower leg there, but not everyone does. So if you don't have access to that level of range of motion, then by all means feel free to elevate that front foot. And so it's a 1 1/4 rep. So some people might get confused with like a pulse. It's not a pulse, it is a small part of the rep that we're asking Amy to complete. All right, so we're going to change from the lower body to the upper body now. And we have been playing around with push-ups and variations just to try to keep everyone engaged at their home gym. So this one is going to be a little bit tricky because we're going to try to load up one side of the body over the other one. So we're going to get Amy to go off the knees in this first set. And you see she's created almost like a fork position with that right hand. And she's going to load up and go into that pressing position, but predominantly putting her weight through the left hand. Beautiful. And guys, she is off the knee. So knees is a really good option here. Beautiful. And we're going to go for 6 reps each side. So you even want to consciously make an effort to, just move that out of the way for Amy, to load up through that hand that is pressed into the ground. So you want to consciously put more weight into that side of your body. So on this side for Amy, it will be her right arm. And again, we're just trying to provide some variations to some of these popular pressing patterns. Great, so we've done 6 reps each there, and we're going to go back to our first movement. A couple of key things in terms of cueing this movement. So we want Amy's knee absolutely tracking in line with her toes. That's her goal. We also want that quarter rep to be a true quarter rep. You're going to be tempted to shorten that range of motion to just like a little bounce. That's not the idea of the game here. For some of you who don't have great stability, so you try to grab stability by creating tension in this movement, you may want to position yourself near a wall or near a piece of furniture or a fence, something that can take the stress of trying to stabilize yourself out of the equation. And that may help you get into a deeper range of motion. And of course, we've got those variations depending on your your range of motion available in your lower leg there. And for some of you, you may even get a nice little hip flexor stretch on that back leg. Awesome. Great. So we're going back into that press up. And the ideal position, I guess, for the working arm here, we've spoken about this in some of our earlier workouts, but it's having that elbow closer to the torso than flared out. A lot of people make the mistake of really flaring the elbows out in a push-up movement. Some yogis, as we've said before, will bring that in really tight, but we want it to be about in between, so about a 45-degree angle from the torso. And of course, we want to maintain that nice lumbar curve, so that nice curve in the lower back. We want to maintain that position and not collapse through there. Beautiful. Another benefit of doing some of these exercises with single limbs, so legs, arms, etc., is we're getting that somewhat an aerobic experience as well. As the heart rate starts to elevate, the breathing becomes a little bit heavier, because we don't need to have big rests in between these movements. We can go from one limb to the next and then one movement to the next as well. Our next pairing will we will go into some bilateral movements, so using both legs or both limbs at the same time. But this should be enough to really get you into this workout. And as I mentioned, elevate the heart rate and start to really get a sweat up. This movement in particular will really start to load up the quad on that front working leg. And also you should get a little bit of tension through the glutes there as well. Feel free to add some load to this one if you've got something at home. Ordinarily in a gym, you'd be holding dumbbells or kettlebells or something similar. Even a cable is really nice in this movement, but anything if you want to load up that pattern. Beautiful. So if you want to have a crack at this one on the toes, then by all means. Amy's done a lot of work today, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, so we're just keeping her on her knees.
Give it a crack.
Here we go. Here we go. Beautiful. Look at that form. Guys, she's doing really well there, maintaining perfect body position and really loading up through that right side. She's making this look really easy. Awesome job, Amy. Nice work. Might just let Amy catch a breather. And we're going to go into some exercises where we will use some equipment. However, at home, you can be creative with what you're going to use. You can use a couch. You can use a chair. We're obviously going to use these boxes, the plyo boxes, for one of our movements. And we're also going to use a plate for one of our exercises as well. But we're going to talk you through that in a sec. And by plate, I do mean a bumper plate, not a food plate. Although at home, that might be an option for you. All right, so let's grab one of these. I'll get this sorted for Amy. She's been working pretty hard today. So a pretty popular exercise, one that we've been working through in some of our earlier sessions as well. So again, we're using some tempo and some variation on that. Actually, Amy, we're going to get you to jump the other way. So we're going to put your upper body on the plyo box there, or if you're at home, it might be a lounge or a chair or something similar. And we're going to go into a hip extension pattern, but we're going to carry that same theme, so 1 1/4 reps. So that means she's going to extend, she's going to drop down, and then do a little quarter rep at the bottom. A little quarter rep, drop down, and then extend all the way up. Now, because the range of motion on this is a little bit shorter, we're going to need some more reps to really get the glutes fired up in this movement. So we're going to do 12 reps here, and it's 1 1/4. And again, it's a true quarter if we can, it's not a pulse. And she's extending up there. Beautiful. Guys, if you've got I've got a crazy dog at home, I reckon he could fit perfectly over the hips there. He's about 25 kilos. There's my load and I'm ready to roll. So you may need to get creative with some of the things you've got just around you to make some of these movements a little bit more intense. But for most people, executing this well, and by well, full extension at the top, is probably going to be enough to get a really good workout here. Awesome. How many reps you got left there, Amy?
Last one.
Last one. Beautiful. Okay, so she's really not going to like me after this one. So Working the back part of the body with minimal equipment is really difficult. We've been doing some extension movements there, which is great. The hamstring muscle actually has two real functions. One of those is to extend the hips, which we just completed, and another one is to provide flexion at the knee. So we're just going to shuffle back. We're getting the call that we're out of sync here, and we don't want to miss this one. All right. So we're going to try to attempt to do a home version of a lying hamstring curl. So we're going to use obviously Amy's body weight. Now on this surface, most of you will be familiar with this. It's like a sled track surface, so the plate will slide on it. If you're at home and you're on carpet, you can use something similar that will slide on the carpet. If you've got floorboards or tiles, simply a towel will be all you'll need, and you'll be able to perform this exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Amy just to stretch her legs out to start with. She's going to dig her heels into that plate, extend through the hips, and then she's going to draw that plate back towards her and then extend back out. Beautiful. Bring that plate in and extend back out. Guys, this is a brutal movement, so make no mistakes about it. Just to make it interesting for Amy, we've even given her a loaded plate there, so 5 kilos. Really nice. So she's not going to like me because we are going to do 10 reps of this one. But she's doing a really good job here. So we're training the hamstrings as a knee flexor, which is really hard to do without traditional gym equipment. And this is one of the easy ways we can make it happen. You've got options there depending on what surface you're in at home. If you are on grass, it's going to be a little bit challenging. You might want to use something that might roll over it, a foam roller perhaps, or a medicine ball. There are also options for you, but a really nice alternative to that movement. So let's go back to our hip extension pattern. And we're working through 12 reps here, 1 1/4. Beautiful. And again, if you've got a way to load this at home with anything that might be able to come across your hips, then that's obviously open to you as well. You can load it with bands. So we have put a band, well, we're putting a band workout out at some point. But if you can somehow fix a band across the hips and fix it to the ground with something heavy, then you can create some tension using a band as well. Again, guys, just trying to get creative with some of the things you might have handy. You may not have access to a lounge or a chair or whatever it might be. You guys are familiar with this movement, and you can do this from the ground as well. How many is that, Amy?
Last one.
Awesome. Very good, very good. So we're back now to her favourite exercise. Not really. Again, there's heaps of variations. As I said, if you've got a roller or a foam roller or a variation of, you can use that. Some of you might have that Swiss ball sitting in the office that you used to sit on sometimes. We've all tried that as well. The Swiss ball can be used for this movement. Alternatively, a towel on a piece of floor or something that will slide on carpet or something similar. So it is tricky. You really do need to dig the heels into the plate or the surface you're using. But as we said a little bit earlier, a great way to train this pattern, which is really hard to do without normal equipment. And again, Amy's making this look way easier than it is. This is pretty difficult. Awesome. So a really nice couple of exercises here. So pairing 2 exercises up that train the back part of the body. So this is our last set of the 3. And Amy's been doing a great job in working through these patterns. We have built in some single leg variations of this pattern in some earlier exercises or some workouts. And that is an option, but for today we are going to try to work the 2-legged option or the bilateral option. Outstanding. Head position, you may think that Amy's head position currently should be back a little bit as she extends, but actually tucking the neck in a little bit and tucking the chin in is the correct position when you're performing this movement. So that's a good position that her head's currently in. And I think she's almost done there. Very good, very good. And here's our last homemade hamstring curl, should we say. Actually, let me just position that so you can really dig your feet into the back part of the plate. Yeah, really nice, really nice. So as I said a bit earlier, you could actually use literally a plate if you've got a carpet surface or something similar. Anything that you feel will provide or allow the ability for you to slide across the surface you're on. Swiss ball, as I mentioned, is a really good variation of this as well. And if you want a really big challenge, doing this on a Swiss ball with one leg is a really difficult movement and a way to really challenge that movement. All right, so we did mention we were going to use tempos and some tempo changes, so the little quarter reps we've completed. And now we're actually going to increase the intensity or I guess provide some variety by using some held positions. And the first one we're going to do is called a reverse plank. So before I get Amy to get into that, I'll just let her have a quick little breather. And the nice thing about this is, while it is a held position and it is creating tension in certain parts of the body, like the triceps, it is a really nice way to open up through the chest as well. And that's a theme we've been trying to carry in a lot of our workouts, because we're conscious of being stuck in this crunched or hunched over position. So to play this movement, you'll see Amy's just rotated her palms forward. And then what she's going to do is she's just going to push her body up and extend and place her head in a natural position. And the main cue here is just to keep driving those hips up as high as you can. And you should feel a really nice opening up of the chest. We would normally hold that a little bit longer, so we're going to let Amy chill because she's had a pretty big day so far today. But on our next set, I'll show you a variation for those that maybe can't hold the legs in that straight position. Our next movement, to couple with that one and to carry on the theme of held positions, is the deep squat. Something that seems super simple, and most people think that it's not that much of a big deal to sit into this movement. It's actually a really difficult position for a lot of people to hold, particularly if we take note of the heels. So most people will come up onto their toes and try to counterbalance their body weight there, but we want to make sure those heels are on the ground. If you can't get those heels on the ground, you can use something to elevate it, like a plate or something similar, but we definitely want the heels contacting the surface. You can use the elbows just to push those knees out over the toes as well. So it's pretty obvious that Amy does spend a bit of time here because she seems super comfortable. And we want to hold this for about 30 seconds as well if we can. I'll come back to this one in a moment because I think we can go back to our first exercise. So the reverse plank, if we want to make this a little bit easier, because this, as simple as it looks, it's quite an intense pattern. Yeah, Amy's shaking her head there. So if we want to make this one a little bit easier, we're going to go into the same position, but we're going to bend the knees. So we bend the knees, same position with the wrists, we extend the hips, and we get a really similar effect in the upper body. So feel free to go into this version if the straight leg version is a little bit too difficult, or if you're finding it just that little bit too challenging. You will get nice tension through the triceps as well, which is an added benefit to this movement. And again, if we wanted to make this that little bit easier, we could also go off the bench that we were using on our hip extension movement a little bit earlier. That is an option as well. Amy's doing a great job there. We'll get her to relax, have a breather, and we will go back into that nice deep squat position. So there's a bit of an old saying with in the strength and conditioning world, and the saying goes that if something's important, you should do it all the time. So the ability to get into a deep squat position, while maybe not this deep is required for everyday movement, but being able to perform a squat is a really important pattern. And the one thing I like to talk about is if you can't do a decent squat, then how do you get off the toilet seat? Because basically that's a squat pattern. So that's how important it is. You may not be able to sit into this deeper position, but find your deepest position, keeping the heels on the ground, and just try to breathe into the movement. Don't hold your breath because that'll create tension, and we want to relax into this pattern, and Amy's doing a great job there. So we might shift back into our reverse plank for the last time. But we'll keep the knees bent. just because that's a really accessible movement for most people. We'll extend through the hips, head's in a nice position, palms are facing the same direction we are, and we're just allowing that chest to really open up. There's nothing more you need to do here, guys. This is a great pattern. Once again, Amy's making this look super easy, but it's a really nice way. Oh, she's shaking. She must have a pretty good poker face because she's getting a really nice stretch there, and it's a really nice position just to hold. Again, if you need to elevate your hands, then that's no problems as well. All right. Let's relax down there, Amy, just for our one last movement before we get into our cool down, and we'll finish off in our deep squat position here. And again, whenever you're performing a stretch or a movement that the job of that movement is to try to create range, we want to be breathing through that pattern. The last thing you want to do is hold your breath. So make sure you are breathing through this pattern and breathing through any exercise that is a stretch type exercise. You really want to be controlling your breathing. So as Amy's just finishing up there, I'll get her to hold there for a little bit longer. She's doing a great job. I'm just going to set her up for our last movement for the day. And once again, it's a really nice exercise to open up the upper body, particularly the thoracic spine, so the upper back. Our setup here is probably a little bit higher than we need it. Ultimately, we'd want that probably just a little bit lower, but it'll do for today. So we'll get Amy to relax there. She's been sitting there for a long time. So this last movement is a nice way to open up the thoracic spine. And it's a pretty popular movement to create range of motion there. So we'll see Amy's got her elbows about shoulder width apart, bringing the hands together, and she's just sitting deep into that position. And she's trying to create some space in the upper back. Now, Amy's clearly got some really good range of motion here, so she doesn't have too many dramas. But you might find that as you sit into this position, your head might not even be able to brush past whatever you're using to support this movement. Could be a chair, could be a bench you got at home, or a lounge or something similar. So just work on your own range of motion. And also just be mindful of your lower back. So we'll just get Amy to relax there. She's been sitting in there for a little bit. And what I mean by be mindful of your lower back, there's a chance that you can just sort of excessively arch through that position. We want to maintain that natural curve as best we can. So let's set up there one more time, just so we can show the guys at home this really nice movement. Hands can come together, and we just sit deep into this exercise. Really important here, we've got to breathe. And I find that as I breathe in and inhale, and then as I exhale, I can normally sit a little bit deeper into this movement. Amy's super mobile in this area, so she's pretty comfortable regardless. Personally, I'm a little bit tighter, so I can't get straight into that kind of position. I need to do a few reps, breathe in, exhale into the pattern, and find my way into this sort of depth. So guys, that's the end of today's workout. We've used some tempo changes, we've used some holds, and we've used some variations on some traditional movements just to try to tweak and make them a little bit interesting for you at home. Of course, we want to thank Amy for all her hard work, and we really look forward to seeing you on our next workout.